Would everyone agree that we live in a bit of a chaotic world at the moment? Okay, no matter who you are, what your political affiliation is, whatever, we live in a bit of a chaotic world. Okay? We have people who are afraid of zero and zero caution. We have people who are afraid of everything. And most of us fall somewhere in between those. But there is a spectrum of takes on things, opinions, and attitudes, and there's a spectrum of levels of love. Okay, so if you're turning to Matthew chapter 5, I want to read a little section from there, then we're going to expound on that, okay? Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 to 16 says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." If you've been in church for any number of years, you've heard this lots of times. And, you've maybe sung the song, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no. Won't let Satan blow it out." And you're kind of like, what does that even mean? What is this little light of mine? So I want to ask the question, what is the light? When we read a verse that says, "Let your light shine before men, that they would see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven," what is the light? I think that's a pretty important question to ask. Let your light shine. Okay. If you never stop and think, what is that? What is the light that I would let it shine? Is it good works? Because it says, that men would see your good works and glorify your Father. Is it just doing the right thing? Is it being nice? I mean, I've had people do nice things for me. I've never thought, there is something missing in my life here. That person did something nice for me. I feel like my life is going to change because of this nice thing this person did for me. No. I don't think it can be just nice things. There has to be more to it than that. So do you think that the Bible actually directly answers the question, what is the light? The Bible actually immediately, directly answers that exact question, what is that light that He wants us to shine, that people would see our works and glorify our Father who's in heaven? Let's go to John chapter 1. John chapter 1, verse 1, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." The Word in this section is literally talking about Jesus Christ Himself. "He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men." You see that immediately answers the question, what is the light I'm supposed to let shine? In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. The very life that Jesus is the light we are called to let shine. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, and that word believed is trusted, depended, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Just an important point I want to make here. You will hear the statement, we are all God's children. That is true from the perspective of, without him was nothing created that was created. You are a created being. You're created by the power of who Jesus is. So from that perspective, you are a creation of his. But this says, To all who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. This is a different thing. To say that we're all children of God, we're all just headed to the same place, really doesn't line up with what the Bible says from cover to cover. There's a lot in there. Does he passionately, compassionately, patiently love every single person? Yes. Does he call them to himself? Yes. But as we look at this moving forward, you're going to see that there is a decision that every person has to come to, and it has everything to do with this light. Okay? It says, the true light which gives light to everyone was coming into the world. His own people did not receive him. So we live in this world, and we're called to share the light, right? To shine so that people will see the works that are going on in our life and glorify our Father who's in heaven. They're meant to see a bit of who he is and begin like this appetite for who he is, partially in seeing him alive in us. And from John chapter 1, we know that that light is in fact Jesus himself. It is not just being a good guy, being a good girl, trying to follow the rules, making sure you read the Bible, pray, and go to church. Those are all products of a real relationship being alive in you, but they are not in themselves the end or the solution for the problem we face of just being fallen human beings. So in our world, if Jesus being alive in us and that light shining is supposed to be this thing that causes people to see what's going on and glorify God, then why is there always, in every part of the world, a hostility toward the truth of who Jesus really is? Are we coming across something where all of a sudden the Bible doesn't make sense there? If him being alive in us is supposed to attract the world to him, that they would see our good works and glorify God, then why do we not always see that? Why do we have times where, now listen, I'm a human being. There will be times when I say things, and maybe I don't say them in the best way. Maybe I say something and it's taken wrong, or maybe I just said something dumb and stepped on somebody's face and didn't mean to, but I did. That's one reason why people could be hostile. But there are times when the simple truth of who Jesus is and his love for a world, and just the fact that people are selfish by nature, to say that can be very offensive. Even when it's said from the standpoint of he came and gave his life and paid with his own blood to solve that problem. He's not rejecting us because of that problem. He's offering to fix and solve that problem. He wants to own my life. He wants to bring peace and purpose and direction to my life. He wants me to spend, not that you can spend eternity, he wants me to be with him for all of eternity, doing things I was made to do, doing things that light my fire, not having fears and hurts and pain and disease and tears ever again. He wants to pull me into that. But a world still finds that offensive, but that makes sense. And there's a simple reason why. Let's go to John 3. We're going to start at John 3:16, probably the most known verse in the world. If you've ever watched a football game and there was a field goal or an extra point kicked, usually on a piece of white poster board in black Sharpie will be the words John 3:16, right? We're going to read from John 3:16 through like 21. It says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son." For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes, and again the word believes is trusts. Often I use the illustration of sitting on a chair and saying, I believe this chair can hold me up, or standing off to the side and saying, I totally believe with all my heart this chair can hold me up. But then I'll sit in the chair and I'll kick my feet up on a table higher than where my butt is and be like, this is believe. If this chair was unable to hold me up, I would fall and probably hurt myself, but I believe and my actions show the reality of my trust, my belief in this chair. That's what the word believe means. That whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe in him is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. In this is the judgment. The light has come into the world, and people loved the darkness rather than the light, because their works were evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his work should be exposed. But whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. I want to be careful with the way we tear this apart. The interpretation of that section is not only the goody-goodies are going to get to heaven. If you're hanging out with the wrong crowd or you do bad things, you're not good enough. Every one of us, redeemed by the blood, or just figuring out what that even means, or totally lost running in the opposite direction, we all have the same human tendency to stay in the dark. Nobody just goes out in a super bright sunlight and takes a picture of themselves when they wake up first thing in the morning without looking in the mirror at all and makes that their profile picture on Facebook. We want to decide how we are perceived. I don't want a bad picture of me on Facebook. I don't want you to put a bad picture of me on Facebook. Why? Because we're self-conscious of how we look. We want to be in control of how we're perceived. And whether that's me and Chet talking, I care about what Chet thinks of me, Chet cares what I think about him, it goes from there to God, what God thinks of me, what people in the grocery store think of me. I care because I'm human and I naturally want to control the details because I can mitigate my own loss and pain. I can control what people think of me. It's just part of being a selfish human. We're all wired that way. So here's what happens. I, by nature, am born selfish. So I've done things and will continue to do things that I have no way of making up for because living a perfect day is keeping up. I can earn some more debt, but I can't make a payment toward the debt because perfect is break even. So the way sin is covered in me is for me to step into the light and allow Him to define what is there, and then allow Him to wash away the filth and the problem. A few weeks ago, I was preaching out here, and I said, nobody likes when somebody tells them they have something in their nose, like, hey, I got something in your nose. Nobody likes that, especially when you've been at like a wedding reception for like an hour and a half, and you're pretty sure that a lot of people have seen it but didn't have the nerve to tell you. It's never fun when somebody questions the perception you're painting. But if no one says, hey, flies down, you got toilet paper stuck to your shoe, if no one ever says that, how does it ever get fixed? If we're only concerned about, well, I don't want to upset them, and we live the same way, how will anything ever get better? I think it's pretty obviously true that nothing can be improved until it's made known that improvement is possible or needed. That's the case in all of our lives. So the reason why the world is not attracted to our light shining many times is, number one, it's our light, not His light. Number two, light exposes things. One of the illustrations that really works for this is being in a situation where you have a medical issue. Jesus said once when He was asked, why do your disciples and why do you hang out with Pharisees and tax collectors and publicans and sinners? And Jesus said, I came for the sick, not the well, because the well have no need of a physician. Was He saying that the Pharisees and all the stuck-up people didn't have any need of Him? No, he was saying, hey, I'm a doctor and I work at Roswell, and only the people who will acknowledge they have a problem can I help. I'm here to help the people who come to me for what I went to school for, what I've trained for, what I've given my life to. I'm here for the people who come in need of what I have. They don't drive to work for the person who's living in denial out 50 miles away. They just aren't at work for them. It's not that they couldn't help them or that there's no need, but until a need is acknowledged, a fix can't be applied to it because it's as if there is no need. The need will still cause the same damage, but only the acknowledged one can be treated. Is it fun to receive a diagnosis? No. Is it fun to go to the dentist and have him say, got a drill, you got a cavity? I don't want to hear that. But I don't want to get home a week later and have my face swollen out to here either on a Friday at 5 afternoon. Because you know that's when it's going to happen, right? Cavities come at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. I don't want that. So as much as I don't want to hear, we need to drill your tooth, do I want it fixed? Yeah. And plenty of people have that fear and won't have it fixed, and they'll lose the tooth. And listen, the crazy thing is, to them, it is legitimately better to just lose the tooth than to face the needle and the drill. That's legitimately true for them. That's how the world is. There's an answer for what is wrong with us. It's never going to be fun to face it. But when we think of Jesus and how he dealt with people, when he walked this earth, think about the people who benefited from him. Was it the Pharisee who thought that there was nothing wrong? He didn't get a whole lot of love from Jesus. I think when they were open to hearing it, he was kind, but he told them things like, they're a brood of vipers, you're whitewashed tombs, you look nice on the outside, but inside you're full of dead men's bones. In Matthew 23, he said to the religious leaders, you make your disciples twice as much a son of hell as you are. He called the religious leaders sons of hell and said they made worse disciples than they were. That is not like endearing, obviously, right? But when he meets the woman at the well, we talked about last week, and before that, the woman with the issue of blood, the woman caught in adultery, Matthew the tax collector, kind of hard to hide from your profession when Jesus approaches you and says, hey, come follow me. All the disciples knew who he was. When he comes to people who are in a spot where they don't really feel like walking out into the light, but they've come to a place where they realize there's really not a better choice, in that life where the true light of Jesus is shining, that life will find the truth. A lot of the world won't. And I just want to make clear that when you are living out the truth of who he is in your life, and you're growing, and you're calling on him to change who you are, and you're sharing your faith, it makes sense that not everyone is going to want to hear it. And when you begin to say, this is what he's doing in my life, and a person doesn't want to hear it, stop. Come back another day. Don't make the next time you feel like sharing a story harder than it needs to be. If a person is not ready, he'll bring a time when they're ready to hear that. You are not the Savior of the world. You taking every possible advantage to quote a Bible verse to every person you come in contact with every single day is not your job. And that might sound mildly unbiblical, but you got to know that there were times when Jesus healed a person, and there were 1,000 more that needed healing, and he healed one. They weren't supposed to be in Samaria. He was in Samaria. God has simple things for you to do. I used the illustration this morning of depression, and I don't know why we went there. I think it was talking about when you have need, light is so much more attractive than when you feel like everything's fine. I said, you could have a day where you're in bed and it absolutely is not worth getting out of bed. Depression can be that big a thing to overcome. I said, you could be in a boat that's sinking, and there's a cannonball hole in the side of the boat, and there's 10 people in the boat, and you have a shipment of thimbles, and they bust open the bag and they start bailing water with a thimble. And you're just like, why work any harder than I have to in drowning, right? The boat's going down. I ain't bailing with a thimble. If that makes you feel better, fine, but I'm living in reality. The thimble ain't going to save us. I might as well relax the last 10 minutes I have. That's what depression's like. Depression can be this spot where the entire world is living in a dream where everything's fine and you know that it's not, and there's really no point in trying in that moment. It can be that hard. But in that spot, let me tell you how powerful letting your light shine can be, even in a place where you're debilitated. Let's say your cell phone is on the desk or is on the table next to you, and you realize that one little thing, as much as it seems pointless, can begin to change the tide. You reach for your phone, and you text a friend who you know is going through a really hard time, and you say 3 words, thinking of you. In my office on the wall, there's a thing written in colored chalk that says, your eyes point out for a reason. What that does in that moment is it takes your focus from inside, where all you're seeing is the monsters, and it makes you consider someone else. And in your love for them, you text 3 words, and you just shined your light in their life. And you began focusing outside. And the magic of something so simple is that you can't give a gift from nowhere. You have to have something to give a gift. And 3 words can be a gift. And once your brain registers, I just gave something to someone I love and I blessed them, you begin to register that you have something. And it's like the naval officer YouTube video. You want to be a success? Let me tell you where to start. Make your bed. Because it's the beginning of success. It sets the tone for the next thing and the next thing. I want to give you permission to shine your light in simple ways. This is not go quit your job, go to Bible school, start a church in the inner city, and get everybody on the block saved. That is not what this is. This is let the light of who He is, first of all, be real by stepping into the light yourself and letting Him change things in you. And then let Him show you simple ways to be light in the lives of other people. And where the darkness is really dark, that light will be embraced. But it won't be everywhere. It won't be everywhere. It's scary to walk into the light, but it's the only place where the thing that's wrong can be exposed and fixed. No mechanic works on your car in a pitch black room. What do they have? They have a drop light. Not even light enough in the room. They grab another light on an extension cord or a lithium battery and they put it under the hood, or they wear a light on their head. Because you have to expose things to light to find the problem. So let me nutshell the whole story today. He calls us to let our light shine before men that they could see our works and glorify our Father who is in heaven. What's the light? When He came into the world, He was life, and that life was the light of men. So the light He wants us to share is literally His presence in our life. So what are the works people see and glorify our Father who is in heaven? We're going to let the Bible basically answer that question for itself. The center section we read was John chapter 1. True light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor the will of the flesh, nor the will of man, but of God. And does not come to the light, lest his work should be exposed. But whoever does what is true comes to the light. A person who does what is true still needs to come to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works, mentioned again, was in Matthew, now he's talking about it again in John, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. The works that will lead people to the truth of who Jesus is are works that are not normal in this world. They are the message to the person you haven't seen in a month, just saying, hey, you cross my mind, I'm thinking about you. Stopping to help someone because something inside of you is saying, I love that person, love them too. This is what attracts the world to him. Works that look like Jesus. Simple stuff. Simple stuff. The disciples were all simple, clueless people who were clueless till long after he died. And he turned the world upside down with 12 simple people. I don't think, Matthew may have had a degree, but I don't think the rest of them did. If you want the light to exist in your life, and you want that light to shine, and you want lives to be blessed through that light in you, then let's just pray for that this morning, okay?